Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Black Hat 2021. I'm your host, Chuck Harold. We're here with Airgap, the Airgap Networks. My next guest, Mr. Ritesh Agrawal. He's the CEO of Airgap. And my next other guest is Mr. Zack Atya. He's the Director of Partnerships for Zeguro. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chuck, for having us.
Now, I'm really excited to talk to you about today. Our topic is cyber insurance and the ransomware kill switch. Now, many years ago, I was fortunate enough to kind of be brought into the cyber insurance world as people were starting this up. And I thought, what a great idea. We need this because so many people just can't afford a giant IT staff and so on. But then I also thought, what's our mitigation? We can't just wait around for the attack and then say, I'm just going to pay it and everything's fine. Because we need to have something that's going to prevent the attack in the first place. Let's start out by talking about the two companies. Ritesh, give me an intro about Airgap real quickly, what you do, then we'll go to Zack.
Absolutely, Chuck. Airgap is in the business of protecting our customers from a potential ransomware breach. And these days, as you know, with this distributed workforce, people working from home, and now we are potentially talking about coming back to work. All of this modulation is creating a bigger threat surface for many of the organizations. As we have seen in various news articles, ransomware is no stranger to anybody. It's a kitchen table topic these days. Think of Airgap as the only company that is squarely focused on addressing the challenge with a very innovative solution that is being very well received by the industry as well as investors so far.
Now, Mr. Zack, tell us what you do. I think it might have something to do with cyber insurance.
That's absolutely part of the equation. So Zeguro is really meant at helping organizations navigate the digital unknown. And we do that through kind of a two-step solution. We have the preventative, good hygiene through security awareness and security policies, as well as cyber insurance. So rounding that out. So in the worst case scenario, if something were to happen, you have that financial security to complement your cybersecurity. So ultimately you come out on top.
Now, you two guys are going to form a partnership. I think this is a fantastic idea. I mentioned it earlier about mitigation. If we have insurance, let's also put something on top of that. Talk to me about the partnership. Zack, we'll start with you. What are you most excited about in this partnership?
Well, at Zeguro, we strive to make cybersecurity really easy and approachable. And our partnership with Airgap, I think, illustrates that because both companies see value in making things easy. We try to prevent incidents from occurring through our product suite. And Airgap takes sophisticated technology and really puts it in the hands of everyday businesses and shortens that ransomware kill chain. If that's not something to be excited about, I don't know what is.
Well, I agree with that 100%. Mr. Ritesh, how about you? What are you most excited about in this?
Well, this is very exciting because for the first time, we can see that businesses of all sizes can take advantage of technology as well as services that Zeguro and Airgap together offer to protect themselves from this menace of ransomware. Much like COVID-19, I think we'll all eventually get impacted with ransomware, if not already impacted. In those scenarios, you need two things. One is to be able to protect yourself against the breach and make the attack surface really, really tiny, potentially down to one computer. And God forbid, if you get breached in a massive way, you need to have that financial stability and assurance that Zeguro can provide. So between the two companies, Airgap and Zeguro, much like Zack said, you have best of both world combination. And if you can't be excited about that, I don't know what would excite you more.
Well, I agree 100%. It makes a lot of sense. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. How will the two companies directly benefit from the partnership? I know people kind of get mitigation and backup and financial, but let's give them a practical demonstration of that. Ritesh, let's talk about the value proposition that you would give to the Zeguro customers.
So one of our product is very, very simply the Ransomware Kill Switch, which allows you to stop the ransomware propagation instantaneously. Remember, ransomware likes to propagate. The more the computers they infect, the more the size of the ransomware demand, or the bigger the ransomware demand. So our goal is to reduce that to the extent that we can. Second thing is our solution essentially ensures that not only your endpoints or devices are protected, but your applications are protected as well, regardless of where the users are logging in from. And the third thing about Airgap is we provide this in a hybrid workforce environment. We provide the best of breed solution for security and networking to our customers, where remote access as well as on-prem access is fully protected and fully secure. You wrap that up with Zeguro's insurance. In case if you get breached, even if we have reduced the threat surface down to maybe one computer, the ransomware could still be demanded depending on what you have on the computer. In those scenarios, I think your insurance will help you. And many customers are bound by their customers to have cyber insurance. So coupled with Zeguro, which is very sophisticated in terms of how they offer cyber insurance. They are not run of the mill, let me write down the insurance. They actually understand your threat posture. They recommend solutions like Airgap. They also do some services for you to ensure that your threat surface is minimized, and they help you reduce the cyber insurance payment. So think about maximum protection and minimal cyber insurance protection. That's what these two companies bring together for you.
All right, Zack, back to you. What's your value proposition for an Airgap customer?
So when you look at cybersecurity into the three broad categories, you have the people, processes, and technology. And I can say with confidence, Airgap has the technology. It's really exciting stuff. On our end, we really like to look at the people and the processes. So from the people aspect, we try to mitigate risk by training employees with our security awareness training platform. And for the companies that are just getting started out and maybe don't have those security policies, or maybe they're trying to achieve some level of compliance, which I'm sure a lot of Airgap's customers are seeking to achieve, we offer security policy templates to that end. So it's not just being able to secure yourself, but also having preferred pricing on your insurance as well. If you're an Airgap customer, there's a pretty likely scenario where you could be saving money on cyber insurance than if you were to be working with some other organization that insures you.
Mr. Zack, you hit on something I perked up my ears when you said your cybersecurity policies. Now, this is a big deal. I think a lot of people say we shall not have breaches on our network and don't go to the gambling sites and do all these things. That's not really a great cybersecurity posture or position. And without the policies, you're really not going to have the ability to maintain your networks. So let's say I'm coming to you, I want to sign up for cyber insurance and I want to just kind of forget about this and just go insure me, Zack. What should I be looking for in my cyber insurance policy? What's usually covered? And when you sign up for your cybersecurity insurance policies, what should I be looking for as a consumer? I'm a guy that checks all the boxes for my home insurance and says, just give me everything. I don't want to worry about it. But be a little more specific about that.
Sure. So most organizations, when they're buying their insurance, right, the tried and true policy that almost every organization buys is a general liability policy. And similar to what you had just mentioned with your home insurance, you kind of check all the boxes. You're like, okay, give me all the bells and whistles and make sure I'm covered. The same thing kind of happens with general liability. There are extensions for some degree of cyber coverage, but it is not by any means as robust as a standalone monoline cyber insurance policy. So you need to make sure it covers you for the three broad categories. I like the rule of threes. So the first one is your third-party liability. Really what that means is it's the costs associated with typically your negligence in securing private information of your clients, in failing to contain a cyber incident and spreading that incident to another organization or individual. So any sort of defense, fines, penalties, settlements, that is covered in the third-party liability section. The second section is a first-party cost. And those first-party costs typically cover what any organization would have to pay in the event of a data breach. So digital forensics is one. Another one is data restoration, right? It's not free to get your data back if it's been deleted or damaged in any way. Even PR costs. This is one that, I like to call it spin coverage, right? Just like, the college coaches, this was a teachable moment for the team. Well, you got to hire a PR firm that tells everybody this was a teachable moment for our organization and our clients have no reason to be concerned with this breach, right? So it's a really important coverage part, and making sure you have coverage for those first party costs so you can get back up and running as quickly as possible is important. And there's business interruption coverage that, there's lost revenues as a result. many ransomware attacks hinder organizations from being able to make money. And that's why businesses are in business, is to make money. So business interruption actually helps cover you for those lost revenues and potentially extra expenses associated with mitigating further damage. So first party, absolutely important. It's a must have. And finally, digital crime. This is something that your policy may or may not have. Luckily, at Zeguro, we can say that our policy does. And it really, when you think about it, it's about loss of funds. If an organization loses funds as a result of a misdirected payment due to misleading information from a threat actor, social engineering, phishing, all of that loss of funds is encompassed in cybercrime coverage. So if I were to break up the coverage into three parts, it's the third party, the first party, and cybercrime.
Mr. Ritesh, there's an exponential increase in ransomware, and exponential is maybe not the strong word. Maybe there's a better word than that, but you don't understand. It's out of control. Everybody knows that. How does Airgap alleviate the ransomware victims and fit into the incident response process? Now, I'm really interested in this answer because we don't think about you as incident response. Maybe we think about you as prevention, but I think we need to think about Airgap as both to be totally effective.
Absolutely, Chuck. Airgap can help customers not just with prevention of the ransomware attack to begin with, but in case if you, because of configuration error or human error, you get into ransomware attack, we can obviously provide that crucial incidence response that is missing in the organization today. With the surgical strike, in the sense we stop ransomware with a surgical precision so that you don't experience a business downtime, which is typically what happens if you ended up taking an action in absence of Airgap. And this action usually is to shut down the network. Nobody likes to shut down the network. The audience, some of the audience members could be managing mission critical business. I mean, every business is mission critical by nature, but if you're managing healthcare, if you're managing manufacturing, if you're in the government or critical function, you really don't have the luxury to shut down the network. So Airgap Ransomware Kill Switch can provide that surgical response. But the other point that you made, which is the exponential rise of ransomware, and I don't mean to be the scare the customer kind of sort of company, but I tell you, we've been talking about ransomware since last year. Of course, right now it's the household sort of discussion at the moment. But I will predict one more time that what we are seeing is just tip of the iceberg. I assure you, it's going to get far worse because there is no mitigative solution that is effective as of now. Trust me on this one. Next year, this time, we'll probably be on another interview, and we'll be talking about, oh boy, this has gotten worse. I really don't hope that happens, but I know this will happen because we don't have a proper solution. Airgap is taking the approach of solving the problem at a fundamental level, and I believe unless we do that, it's just we're not gonna see better days.
Talk to me about the automation process involved in this, because I think this is really key too.
Yes, so ransomware response. So one of the things about ransomware is, unlike any other targeted attacks you may have seen in the past, viruses, and then we saw malware, and ransomware is essentially a sophisticated form of malware. But ransomware is designed to propagate, and it propagates pretty quickly, sometimes giving you less than a few minutes or less than a few seconds, often enough, before your organization is completely crippled. In those scenarios, you cannot have the traditional approach of, let me send first of all, have a threat detection platform that is going to detect the threat, maybe with some false positives and false negatives. And then that threat is going to go to the SOC team, and the SOC team is going to take an action. By the time you close the loop on this kind of process, it's too late. You're already impacted and your organization is held hostage. What Airgap can do is automate your incident response, where we would bring the ransomware kill switch is going to bring the network into a lockdown mode as soon as we see or sense that there is a ransomware attack. And we use signals from all sorts of tools that you've invested in, so your EDR platform or your SIM engine or your SOAR platform, and of course our own threat intelligence. So combined with all of this data, we have the ability to take an instantaneous action, an action that would stop the propagation of ransomware, if not at least slow it down dramatically so that you can take an action and protect your crown jewels, basically.
You know, Ritesh, you said something a few minutes ago about Airgap is for all size businesses. This is super duper important because This is a nationwide, worldwide problem. It involves every single computer on Earth. Airgap is security as a service. It's cloud scale. It can be deployed in minutes. This is super important. But instead of thinking about SMB, let's think about businesses of all sizes and their sensitive data. Give me some comments on that. This was kind of your vision when you sat down and did this. You weren't thinking of designing this for the really big security company or big data set. You were thinking about this for every single computer. That's my thought about it.
Yeah, the premise of Airgap started from my previous sort of role in my previous organization, where I was talking to a lot of customers, and they were repeatedly asking for a solution, what we ended up building at Airgap eventually. But the idea was customers of all sizes. I've spoken to CIOs of very, very large Fortune 50 companies, and I've spoken to customers that are as small as 50 employee companies, and their pain is the same. When you get impacted with ransomware, trust me, it hurts larger organization much the same as smaller, probably a little bit more to the smaller organization because their survival is probably at risk if they get hit with ransomware. But the idea was is to ensure that we protect every computer, every service that you run in the organization with our automation framework, with our sort of zero trust isolation platform that is very easy to deploy. It's a cloud delivered solution for the most part. And the idea is to make sure that the ransomware does not propagate. We're also very well aligned with the NIST framework and the MITRE framework that talks about how the threat propagates inside your network. And we work with our customers to demonstrate how we protect them against many of these threat vectors, dramatically slowing down, if not completely stopping the propagation of the threat attack.
Now, Mr. Zack, almost all ransomware attacks are accompanied by data exfiltration. Does cyber insurance do anything to address this risk? You know, cyber insurance is good. It's not everything. Airgap is good. It's not everything. Together, I think it's everything. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Chuck. And data exfiltration is not going away. In fact, we're seeing that there's also an exponential increase in data exfiltration. And if you think about it, data exfiltration is somewhat of an insurance policy for the threat actors. So, you know, if they get into your ransomware system and Airgap does its thing, and it limits the amount of devices that are helping to propagate the ransomware, that's great. But sometimes it does take a bit of time to discover that. And unfortunately, this is one of the shortcomings of EDR. I mean, good EDR and MDR, it does a lot for actually battling the ransomware, but a lot of stuff happens before the ransomware attack becomes apparent. And data exfiltration, that's when that occurs, is before anything becomes noticeable. And what that enables is what's called double extortion, right? So initially you have your ransom that you have to pay just to get your systems unlocked and your data unencrypted. But guess what? They managed to leak some of your data and they are holding on to that. So that means that once you pay your ransom, you have access back to your systems and your data, but they have that data that they leaked and exfiltrated out of your systems. So what are they going to do with that? They're going to turn around and hit you with another ransom. If, let's say, that amount that you gave them was not enough and they know that you have more in the bank, they'll turn around and say, well, listen, we have your marketing list. It could be something as simple as a marketing list. It doesn't even have to be IP or anything that could put you at a competitive disadvantage, a marketing list. And they'll say, hey, we have 10,000 emails that we're going to send out an email to and let them know that they've been breached, right? And you have 20,000 more customers that we're going to email if you don't pay us X amount of money, right? So that exfiltration can be very dangerous, even if the data at face value is not inherently valuable, or maybe is not even your crown jewels. So I would argue that, you know, I think the definition of crown jewels will probably expand over the years, and as these attackers start to get more complex and creative. Now, what does cyber insurance do? Well, most cyber insurance policies should, at least robust cyber insurance policies, should cover any additional mitigating costs associated with a ransomware attack. So if it stems from the original ransomware incident, you should be good to go. If it is a separate incident, I would argue that you're still good to go. as long as it's within your policy limits. And we are seeing people purchase more insurance year over year. So not only are insurance rates going up, but people are also buying more insurance and more coverage. So if you had 1 million, you'll buy 3 million. If you buy 3 million, you'll buy 5 million. And that's because of the increased costs associated with, more specifically, ransomware attacks, but cyber attacks in general.
You know, you said something interesting. I was a police officer many years ago, as you can tell by the white hair. And there used to be an actual, I don't know how would I describe it, kind of an honor among thieves, right? So you could trust a bad guy to do certain things, and you could trust him to not do certain things. And when ransomware first started, I recall, you know, if the guy said, give him $1 million and I'll give you your data back, he gave you his data back. I mean, that was good for his business. Now it's bad for their business because you don't know what's going to happen. To your point, there could be 3 levels of extortion here. Here's your files are unlocked. By the way, I kept your mailing list. And by the way, if you don't do it for the 3rd level, I'm going to send a notice to all your clients and I'm going to ransomware them, right? This is really problematic. Mr. Ritesh, what are your thoughts on this? This makes it even more squirrely in a way that you just can't even trust that you're going to get your data back. So you really have to have prevention, mitigation, and response.
So look, there's no code of honor when it comes to cyber criminals. Right? If you're going to pay them, I'm not sure they would honor the commitment and return your data or not use it again in the future. One statistics that is very clear to everybody is once you're breached, they keep coming back at you. So about 65% of the organization that have been breached once have been breached twice, actually. So that's just not a good sign, unfortunately. Especially those who pay end up suffering the brunt of it. Now, look, triple extortion, we first heard single extortion, which was they'll encrypt your file and boom, you got to pay, otherwise I'm going to delete the file or I'm not going to decrypt the file, and your business will suffer downtime. Some businesses can probably tolerate a couple of days, they have a good backup strategy, maybe they can recover from that. So the cyber criminals got smart and they said, you know what, I'm going to not only encrypt your data, but I'm going to steal your data. And now I'm going to threaten to publish to the public internet. And some customers said, okay, fine, if you're going to publish it, so be it. I'm going to tolerate that, and I'm going to deal with my internal audience and address the problem. And so that was called double extortion. So cyber criminals got even more smart, I would say, smarter, and said, not only I'm going to steal your data, I'm going to now share this with your customers and use the pressure from your customers, especially the large ones that you have, to ask you to pay us the ransom and avoid the complications of sharing customer data to the public in the public domain. And I think we're going to see quadruple extortion, and we'll see more and more as we go forward. What stops attackers to from stealing your employee data, for example, and then sharing with the employee and telling them, hey, unless your organization pays for it, I'm going to release your personal social security number and compensation and all the medical history that you may have to the public. And these employees are the decision makers, essentially. Then you can see another set of data where you steal data for your board of directors and threaten it. So there is no end to it. This is going to keep going. Trust me on this one. The attackers or the bad actors are going to have their way, whether you like it or not. The best strategy is to prevent the attack from happening to begin with. And it's not that complicated. It's really not. Talk to us. I'm happy to provide free assessment and free testing and free guidance. There is no compulsion for any customer to buy anything from us. I genuinely care. I genuinely want to solve the ransomware problem for the industry to the extent I can. We're a small company, but we have a very potent solution. To the extent we can, we would go and help out organizations of all sizes in preventing the ransomware from getting in their organization to begin with.
Mr. Zack, your closing thoughts.
We've hit on a couple of points throughout this conversation, and the important thing is there's the 3-legged approach, which is, assessing and preventing, then mitigating, and then finally having the tools to respond. And with this partnership with Airgap, I think we cover all 3 of those bases really well. So both customers on each side of the equation have a lot to be excited about. And Ritesh has been an amazing partner, as is everyone else on the Airgap team. So I want to thank them for the partnership and thank everyone here for their participation and interest. And I'm looking forward to helping each and every one of you.
Mr. Ritesh, closing thoughts.
We are super excited about partnership with Zeguro. I think it totally makes sense for us to work together and offer comprehensive protection to our customers. We love to talk to each one of you in the audience. Reach out to us. You can contact us at info@airgap.io or visit us on our website at airgap.io. We look forward to seeing you.
Excellent partnership, my friends. And what most people don't know about Mr. Ritesh is he is a legacy person, if there's such a thing in our industry. Having worked for a legacy company before this, he knows what he's talking about. He walks the walk, he talks the talk, and I've seen this thing in action. I'm super impressed by it. So thanks so much, you guys, for coming on Airgap Networks here at the Black Hat 2021. And make sure we visit Airgap at the Innovation City 34. That's IC 34. That's your location. And of course, it'll be on the Airgap network at Black Hat on the virtual side. Thanks so much, my friends, and thanks for coming on Black Hat 2021.
Thanks for having us, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.